trust me?
Right now, my friends, I have other priorities tonight. And one of those priorities is my review for The Last of Us Episode 2. So as you guys know, I talked about this during my, the original review for The Last of Us show, and I did Episode 1. I had a lot of misgivings going into this series for, to be fair, for very obvious, reasons. The Last of Us is, it's definitely one of my favorite games of all time. Certainly one of my favorite games of the previous decade, of the 2010s, for a variety of reasons. I loved it for its storytelling and its characters, for its world building. Thought it was great. I mean, it's a very cinematic game, a cinematic experience. And I thought, well, you just trying to adapt that for whether it be a film or a show, it's going to be lesser. I'm like, I don't see the point. It's not for me. And to be fair, that show is, I don't think it is for people that truly love the game. I think it's, it's being made specifically for people who have never experienced it before, and they wouldn't otherwise seek it out because they don't play the games, right? And they wouldn't watch the cutscenes on YouTube. A lot of people they wouldn't do that. I'm saying that everyone, wouldn't do that, but most people would not. But the thing is, I saw episode 1, chat, and I really enjoyed it. I thought the first half was stronger than the second half. I loved how additive it was. I loved the additional scenes, especially in the beginning, chat, where they brought in John Hannah, and that's kind of like it was a bit of a 60s period piece explaining the whole idea of this fungus, of this parasite, how it would evolve and decimate human populations. Thought that was very good. Loved all the additional scenes with, and sequences with, Pedro Pascal's Joel, and obviously the character of Sarah. Thought that was all great. Wonderful lead up. And then, of course, we got to the main events of the series, chat, taking place in 2023, 20 years after the events of the beginning part of the first episode. And I liked all of that. I liked a lot of the world building. The one thing that kind of bothered me is that there were some things where I could tell that they were limited by their budget. It's especially with these wide shots. I'm like, it's CGI. That doesn't feel right. I felt like some of the camera work was very flat. Reminded me of the Walking Dead. But for the most part, I really enjoyed the first episode. I thought some people were saying, hey, that was one of the best episodes of all time. For me, I thought, hey, this was very good. It surprised me, chat. And that's what brings us to episode 2. And again, I was very surprised by how much I enjoyed this episode. And the things that I've actually liked the most are the things that they've kind of expanded upon. I don't know if this is going to be what they're going to consistently do going forward in the beginning of each episode, but these cold openings that they've done are just so very good. They're expanding on the lore from the games along with, the setting. And I like that we're going around the world and seeing how this fungus infection spread, how different societies and cultures and countries were dealing with it. Like, I love how, and this is, I'm not going to go fully in the spoilers, chat, just a little bit, at least for the beginning portion here. Okay, I don't want to ruin this for anyone who has not seen the episode, obviously, but I like that we start off, I believe we're in Indonesia. And we start off with this doctor, this mycologist, who is someone who studies fungus. She's at this restaurant, and she is basically picked up by government officials who interrupt her lunch and say, like, you need to come with us. And she thinks, like, she's being arrested. She's saying, like, I didn't do all these things. And it's like, we're not arresting you. We want you to look at something. And, they bring her into this laboratory, and, she has to examine this cadaver, this woman who was bit by someone who was obviously infected by this, this fungus. And that entire sequence and that actress, which I'm unfamiliar with her name is Christine Hakim. She did such a great job in the beginning of this episode, Chad. It's about, I don't know, maybe between 7 to 10 minutes. But I thought it was just such a really cool cold opening, and it was, it's scary, much like, the cold opening for the first episode, where you have John Hannah on there explaining, like, how it's possible, given fungus evolution, changes with our environment, where it could, instead of infecting insects and other creatures, it could potentially move to humans, right? And what are the ramifications? What are the global pandemic ramifications of that? It's like, oh God, it's horrifying. Here we see that, and her performance was great. Like again, when they're asking her like, is there a cure? Is there a vaccine for this? And she's like, no, there isn't. There's nothing like this. We don't have the technology. We don't have the science. It doesn't exist. Something like this shouldn't be possible. And they ask her, what's your advice? I think that's great. Like, they have that military official in there, and it's very intimate because it's just them having a conversation in a room. And he asks her, what should they do? And her answer is just so terrifying. And I'm like, oh, wow. But I love what her answer is because it plays into the rest of the episode that we get. And I thought that was really, really cool. The advice that she gave is what they execute later on, or hinted at what countries and some cities did. I was like, that's really cool. I thought that was nice. And so I don't know if this is going to be a consistent thing where they're going to kind of have like a cold opening for each one and show like what certain people went through or societies or countries did, and see like, oh, how that might play into this particular episode week to week to week. I kind of hope they do, because again, it adds to the world. And so I really, really love that. In terms of the other kind of like world building technical aspects of this, I love how the episode also took the time through dialogue between the characters of Joel and Tess and Ellie, and also just, basically showing us, like they're showing us how the fungus operates in this world, how it controls individuals. And it's different in the game. I know in the game it's like it's through spores. Here they kind of showcase the fungus. It's like it is literally like an entire organism. And I really like that, how one part of that organism can feel something from the other part of it like miles away, and how it's able to motivate and control people in faraway areas to go to like a central point. I thought that was really, really cool. That really stood out to me. I was like, all right. And so again, it's a little different from the video game, but at the same time, they're still doing a really good job of explaining it to you and then showing it to you and then making it look cool and be like very scary. And I really like that. I thought like, oh, you're just going to do a show, don't tell. But no, they do that. They tell us first and they actually show. I'm like, all right, cool. I really like that. And then, we get into more of the horrific aspects of the episode where we really do for the first time see the debut of the clickers, who are these individuals who have been infected by the fungus for years, if not decades, at least 20 years. And they have these huge, just mutated skulls, the fungus just, coming out of their faces and their eyes and their mouths, and their bodies are just so infused with this thing that they're, clicking and popping and locking stuff. Like how they work within the scene, and like several scenes in this episode, but their introduction, it was very good. It is perfect. It is just like the game. It is such a great job emulating how those creatures work and operate within that world. And they bring here, the makeup is fantastic, Chad. Like the fungus, they have, sometimes they have different colors. It's like they kind of have like the same, like they have like a yellowish hue, but sometimes it's highlighted by like blue or pink or red or green. And I'm like, I really like that. That was fun. And the sound design, I mean, the snapping, the clicking, and just I can't even, perfectly emulate it, but that was well done. And the choreography, like how they were moving around in the environment, and how Joel, Ellie, and Tess, how they were forced to move around in the environment, I thought was very good, because these things, like, they can't see anymore, right? Their sense of smell is destroyed because their noses are falling off. They're gone. They're so plugged up with fungus. But, they can still hear very well. And so they have to be very, very quiet as, they're moving around this old environment, right? And so I thought that was great. Outside of the episode's opening and the technical aspects, which I thought were a lot better. And they do have wider shots here. I think, okay, I feel like this episode is maybe a little bit more money, because what they showed in the wider shots, even though it's like, okay, that's CGI, it was at least really interesting, especially like we're in broad daylight and we're seeing like clickers and people that have been infected by the fungus and kind of what they do during the day. I was like, oh, that's neat. I really like that. That was really cool. But there's more intimate moments between all the characters in this episode, between Pedro Pascal's Joel and Bella Ramsey's Ellie and Anna Torv's Tess. Like even how this episode starts after the cold opening, where okay, spoiler for the first episode, they learn that Ellie has somehow survived this infection, but they still don't understand why. They still don't even know she could turn any moment. Like I like how that starts out, and you can really see like what a tight knit team and I guess couple. Joel and Tess are. And this is the first time I think Bella Ramsey actually gets to do a lot other than just kind of swear and be smarmy, because, not her fault in the first episode, but she just didn't have a lot to do. Here she gets a lot more to do. And we see her, be competent, but at the same time just be a little kid, because she's still like, 13, 14 years old. And so she's still, tries to be a kid and tries to make, Joel and Tess laugh, and it doesn't come across as like too try hard or anything. Like I really like that. They also hint at certain aspects of the game, the fact that she can't swim. I'm like, oh, you brought that up in here. Okay, I thought that was funny. Thought that was really good. We also see her bond with Tess, and you have that like mutual, respect for one another. And they have that in several scenes within this episode. And Joel, he's a little more standoffish. One, because he's just unsure about this entire situation, but also because of his daughter. He doesn't want to get too close. I like how they capture that. Even when dad mode activates, he kind of drops it, because he's like, wait, you're not my daughter. So I like that. I like what they're eventually hinting at, what we're going to see, especially those people who are familiar with the game. And, the end of this episode, I think, is fantastic. Anna Torv's character of Tess gets a great moment and a really creepy, disgusting moment. I don't want to say too much. Again, for people who have not seen the episode or have played the games and know about the Tess character, but how they handle everything that wraps up with episode 2 with her, I thought was very good. They changed some stuff up with what they do with her, but I liked it. And it was like, ooh, it was creepy too. So, yeah, overall, episode 2, I think, man, I think even though with episode 1, I think the first half of that episode is like still my favorite thing that they've done. This one was just more consistent throughout. This one was just really consistently good from the cold opening all the way to the very end. It was great, and it's aptly named Infected, Chad. It's a perfect name for this particular episode. So yeah, so far, The Last of Us I think it's doing a great job. It's very good. It's a very good live action adaptation as of right now. I'm interested to see what they're going to be doing in the future of the series, what they're going to be changing, what they're going to be. That's the thing I'm really interested in, because they're pretty much following the premise very accurately, the main story. They're making some change along the way, but I'm liking what they're adding. Again, I really like that they're showing how the rest of the world reacted to this infection and what they decide to do, because at least so far, they seem to be then taking that and then applying it to the rest of the episode. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's like, so it makes the cold opening mean even more, because it's like they're calling back to what this particular character said to do. I was like, that's neat. So I don't know if that's gonna be consistent. I hope it is, because I think it's expanding the lore of the game and just of this entire world. So yeah, very, very strong episode. I really liked it. Again, I don't know if I give it a rating. So far, it's a full price episode. Really, really enjoyed it. What about you guys? How do you feel about The Last of Us episode 2? How did you feel about Anna Torv's performance as Tess in this episode? I thought she did a really good job, especially what they did with it at the end. And again, I don't want to say too much, but yeah, I was very curious. Very curious.